For this lecture, we're going to talk about not homeo, but hemostasis. And so here are the objectives or the outcomes for this. So it looks like a lot. It's not terrible. All right, so here we go. Hemostasis, not homeostasis. And I know that there's probably a few of you on your EBs put something about homeostasis. Hemostasis is essentially what happens when you damage a blood vessel and how we repair it. And there are three main steps: vascular spasm, platelet plug formation, and then coagulation. So let's go through each of these individually. So vascular spasm, this occurs when there's damage to the vessel wall. What happens is that blood vessel immediately constricts. And this is caused by chemicals that are released from the damaged vessel. Okay? This is important. Think of this like a pipe. And let's say that you damage the main water main going into your house or apartment or whatever. There's going to be a lot of pressure. Okay, and so in order for you to repair that pipe, or for someone to repair that pipe, you're going to want to reduce pressure. And so this happens in our blood vessels. We reduce blood flow and pressure by constricting the actual vessel. Once we reduce this pressure, then we can start the formation of a platelet plug. And so this happens when platelets that are just floating around in your plasma and in your bloodstream are attracted to the collagen that's now exposed from the blood vessel. So what happens is they stick to that collagen that activates those platelets. They release chemicals. These chemicals also contribute to that vasoconstriction, but what they also do is they attract more platelets, which then causes them to be activated. They stick, they become activated, they send chemicals, so on and so forth. So this is an example of a positive feedback or a feed forward loop. And ultimately, we get a plug formed which seals the opening, but it's just a temporary fix. This is kind of like if there's if you've got, a hole in a pipe and you put your finger in it to kind of stop it, that'll help for a little while, but it's definitely not something that you're going to want to do long term. And so what we need to do is we actually need to form a clot or go through the process of coagulation. So in your blood vessels, you have fibrinogen, and this fibrinogen is ultimately converted into fibrin. Okay, basically what's happening is you're creating a net, or a net is being created that traps blood cells, platelets, and other stuff. It stabilizes that plug, and then ultimately a clot forms, which is insoluble, which means water can't leave, okay, can't go through it. And so now the vessel is able to heal. Okay, so vascular spasm, platelet plug, coagulation. And coagulation is just the process by which we form a clot. So with these clotting factors, so for this last step, there are intrinsic and extrinsic factors. So extrinsic factors are caused by actual trauma to the blood vessel. This is and these factors are activated, and there's lots of them. These factors are activated when something called tissue factor is exposed, and then also blood escapes out of the vessel. This happens very rapidly in a matter of seconds. Intrinsic factors, on the other hand, are something that occurs inside the blood vessel. So this is internal trauma, okay? And so with this, we've got platelets and proteins and stuff like that are inside the blood vessel, and then they're activated, and they start the clotting process as well. This takes several minutes. This isn't something that happens right away. But between the two of them, they have to work together in order to form a clot. And so people that have clotting diseases, they can have issues with both intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Both of them are important. The intrinsic factors are arguably more important, even though they're slower acting. Now, in order for a clot to actually form and for hemostasis to occur properly, we need calcium. Calcium is kind of the green light to activate these clotting factors. Just like calcium was the green light for exocytosis, calcium is the green light for activation of clotting factors. But we also need vitamin K. And the reason we need vitamin K is because vitamin K makes it possible for calcium to bind to these clotting factors so that we can have activation. So vitamin K is needed, so calcium combined to the clotting factors. Calcium is needed, so the clotting factors are activated. The clotting factors are needed. Activated clotting factors are needed so that a clot can form and we reduce the blood loss. So if you don't have a lot of vitamin K, it's possible to suffer from uncontrolled bleeding, okay? Or so this could be one thing that's happening, or a possible explanation for someone that's got hemophilia. Finally, there's fibrinolysis, okay? Whenever you see the suffix lysis, remember that means the breakdown, okay? So in this case, we're breaking down or we're removing the clot. Now there's proteins that are floating around that are called plasminogen. And what happens is plasminogen is converted to plasmin. And that is actually occurs due to something called tissue plasminogen activator. And so when plasminogen is converted to plasmin, well, plasmin's job is to break down the fibrin of a clot, okay? So plasminogen just kind of there, not doing a whole lot, comes into contact with tissue plasminogen activator. Now we've got plasmin. Plasmin breaks down the clot. Life goes back to normal. It's like nothing ever happened. So, in conclusion, can you do the following 3 things? Hopefully you can, and if you can't, feel free to watch the video again.